Bob Trammell, you are running for Attorney General. We appreciate you making the time to join us on the Georgia Vote today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's start here. I think the big question right off the top, why do you want to be Georgia's next Attorney General?
Well, I think that the job of the Attorney General is to protect people. And the thing for me as a lawyer and an American citizen is a concern about where we are in this country with the rule of law. And I think people are looking for, in their elected officials, someone who can make their lives better. So I'll be an Attorney General who will defend the Constitution, make life more affordable, keep people safe, and protect our rights.
You mentioned a concern about the rule of law. Specifically, what are you concerned about?
Well, the concern I have is when you have just an open disregard for court order, that an attack on lawyers for advocating on behalf of their clients.
Are you talking about an open disregard on the part of President Trump?
I think that you've seen that in Washington after President Trump was elected. You've definitely seen this erosion of what we would sometimes call norms, and in some cases are just a respect for the rule of law. And you've seen the erosion of that. And I think that that is a very dangerous situation, frankly. I think that that means that the Attorney General's office is sort of a last line of defense when it comes to the protection of rights, respect for the rule of law, and the defense of the Constitution.
We've seen in other states, particularly states with Democratic attorneys general, where that office spends a substantial amount of time litigating issues against the federal government. If you're elected, do you think that would be a substantial part of your office's time?
Well, I'll put it this way. The job of the Attorney General is to protect Georgians. And in instances where the Attorney General can act or needs to act to protect Georgians, then we'll be doing that for sure.
Let me ask you about one specific suit that's in the news right now. There was a group of Democratic state attorneys general who filed suit against the Trump administration recently, in their view, to protect access to gender-affirming care for transgender people from what they view as the Trump administration's efforts to restrict that. If you were elected AG, would you sign on to that suit?
Well, we'd have to take a look at the lawsuit. I think what you've also seen is you've seen Democratic attorney generals who've done things like challenge the freezing of funds that were going to kids and after-school care. And again, when it comes to protecting Georgians, that's what the job is, and that's what we'll be doing.
We've talked about norms and in your view and some erosion of norms. I want to make sure we ask you this directly. In your view, what's the biggest problem facing Georgia right now?
Well, I think that the biggest problem facing Georgia is that we really have two different Georgias, and we have a situation where a lot of Georgians aren't benefiting. They feel that they're left behind. And we've got to do a better job as a state of being able to provide that access and upward opportunity for all Georgians, no matter what your zip code is. And that's true for legal access, right? Your access to legal services is too often dependent on where you live, and we can do a better job of that.
When you talk about two different Georgias, are you referring specifically to rich versus poor, rural versus urban, something else?
Well, I think that it often cuts geographically, right? That's historically what people have talked about when they've talked about the two Georgians. But I think that it's equally true that there is a separation economically, that you have Georgians who are enjoying a lot of prosperity, but you also have Georgians who have not benefited and are feeling left behind.
How do you fix it?
The way you fix it is you keep showing up and you keep trying to bridge that gap, and you don't stick your head in the sand and pretend that it doesn't exist.
Do you think some state elected leaders right now are sticking their heads in the sand?
I think that that state elected leaders have sort of fallen into a pattern of pursuing policies that aren't really seeking to address that issue and bridge the gap. I think that they're chasing a lot of times the political story or issue of the day that comes out of Washington, D.C., and that's not helping Georgians.
Let's talk about your record a little bit, because you have an interesting arc through state politics. You were elected to the State House in 2014. You became minority leader right after Stacey Abrams left that role to run for governor, right?
That's right.
Stacey Abrams is a very well-known politician in our state. You followed her as minority leader. Do you see yourself as a Democratic politician in the ideological mold of somebody like Stacey Abrams?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking in that question. I would say that the type of Democratic elected official that I was when I was in the legislature, we fought for things that mattered to Georgians and Georgia's families, like Medicaid expansion, common sense gun safety laws. We fought for issues to keep clean air and clean water, and we fought for criminal justice reform. So if focusing on things that matters to Georgia families, if that is your prototype for a Democratic elected official, then that's what we did.
Let's talk about this here. Chris Carr has been the Attorney General since 2016, so pushing on a decade in that office. He's a Republican. He has also focused on issues such as combating gang violence, combating human trafficking, and in 2020, he, along with Governor Brian Kemp and others, stood up to voices to overturn the results of Georgia's 2020 presidential election, and that was an issue that he was on the same side as Democrats with. When you view his tenure in office, do you think he's done a good job?
Well, I think he's had hits and misses. I think that one of the primary responsibilities for the Attorney General is to keep Georgians safe. I think the initiatives that you referenced there are great initiatives that have benefited the state, particularly the victims of human trafficking. I think that that's very important. I think they obviously made the right call when it came to the 2020 election and opted not to intervene on a baseless fraud conspiracy. But I think that there are opportunities that that we've missed. I think that an attorney general is supposed to look out for Georgians in a way where you can make their lives better. And in some cases, that means challenging the incumbent Republican president in office when he sought to do things that have harmed Georgians in some way. So that would be my overall assessment of that. I think that, what you want to avoid as Attorney General is the temptation just to get involved in political lawsuits just for the sake of being involved in a political lawsuit. The ultimate question, because the client for an Attorney General is ultimately Georgians, and the ultimate question for any type of lawsuit you get in is, does it benefit Georgians or does it protect Georgians? And that's going to be the standard when I'm Attorney General.
I read somewhere that in 2018, you were the only Georgia State House Democrat who represented a district that was won by Governor Brian Kemp and President Donald Trump. Is that right?
Well, that's what they said. It was true, and it was true when I was in the General Assembly that there was not another after the 2018 election. I don't think there was anybody else who represented a district that had gone, but for Brian Kemp and then subsequently, for Donald Trump and then subsequently for Brian Kemp in 2018.
You were a Democrat. You were a Democrat representing a district that had gone for Republicans in the presidential race and the gubernatorial race. That would have made you a bit of a unique legislator at the General Assembly.
It was, and the unfortunate part about the majority of the seats in the Georgia legislature, there are just not very many seats that are actually competitive. So most of the seats lean heavily one way or the other. And the reason I say that's unfortunate is that what happens is that you begin to get policy that is reflective of a heavily gerrymandered state. So my district was very much a competitive district where we had Democrats, Republicans, independents, and it definitely affected the way that I approach my service to the General Assembly. We talked about things that mattered, no matter whether you were a Republican or independent or a Democrat. The issues we talked about were accessible. Because at the end of the day, people care about health care. They want to send their kids to good school. They want to make sure they're safe in their homes.
You took that approach, and then in 2020, Republicans worked very hard to unseat you. WABE reported that Republicans spent close to $1 million to unseat you in 2020, and they were ultimately successful in that. You lost that race. What did you learn from that experience?
Well, I learned that $1 million is a lot of money to spend in rural West Georgia in 3 counties, and I also learned that children are sort of perfect consumers of media. I'll tell you a quick little tale. Some point in the late fall, my 6-year-old came down and she said, "Daddy, why do you want to defund the police?" And you know, I explained to her, I was like, "Daddy doesn't want to defund the police. You know, our cousin is a police officer. Police are our friends." She seemed a little persuaded. Next question she asked was, "Why does John Ossoff only like his Hollywood friends?" And I tried to explain to her that that wasn't true, and she seemed satisfied with that. And then she asked me, she said, "Daddy, are you one of John Ossoff's Hollywood friends?" So when you have a lot of information that comes and it comes over and over and over again, in all seriousness, what it does is it makes it very difficult to penetrate and tell people and communicate your message, because it's just a barrage of misinformation. And so we were certainly dealing with that in 2020.
The reason I bring that up, and where I'm going with all of this, is you talk about your experience while you were still in the State House. When you're a minority leader, you're a Democrat representing a district that has real Republican leanings. And then 2 years later, you get this barrage of Republican effort to unseat you. You talk about, it sounds like, trying to be a moderating voice in the State House, and then a very partisan wave pushes you out of your seat in the State House. With the advantage of hindsight now, do you still see yourself as someone who represents more of the moderate wing of your party, or do you feel like you land somewhere else now?
Well, I think I'm not sure exactly how I would phrase, you know, who I represented all my district. So whether you were a very right-leaning Republican who has voted for Trump every time, or whether you were a yellow dog Democrat that votes for Democrats up and down the ballot, I represented everyone the same way, right? And I guess the thing that I would say is that I think I was doing a good job with what I was doing, or they wouldn't have spent the money they did to try and knock me out of my seat.
I guess that's probably a good place to end here. I want to ask you just one last question, because we've covered a lot of ground here. Your elevator pitch to a voter who maybe has never heard of you, maybe has never spent time in your district, in your home county here in Meriwether County, to somebody who's never met you before, your pitch to that voter would be what?
Well, I want to be your lawyer. The Attorney General's job is to protect Georgians, and that is to defend the Constitution, make life more affordable, and to protect your rights. For almost 27 years now, I've been a lawyer, and for the vast majority of that time, I've represented real people. And they come in my law office, which is in the town here of Luthersville, Georgia, of about 800 people with all different types of legal problems, but it's the most significant legal issue that they're facing in their life and that they'll ever face in their life in most times. And we've represented small businesses in the same types of disputes, the disputes that would make or break their business. I'm going to be an Attorney General who fights for you every day, just like I have for all these years for the clients that we've had.
Bob Trammell, thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.